Hey, what's going on? It's John, and it's time for the J-Mart CAST for Monday, October 25th. God damn it. October 25th, 2021. What's going on? How are you? You can probably hear that I'm sick again for the third week in a row. What the hell is going on, J-Mart? I don't know, man. I don't know. Last week on the weekend, I hung out with some friends who had a sick child, and I'm pretty sure I got infected by another sick child, and I'm okay with that. Doesn't bother me too much. The problem with getting sick again, though, was that this past weekend was my brother-in-law's wedding, so, it's kind of a faux pas these days to show up to big events sick and such. But, not going to miss your brother-in-law's wedding just because you have a little cold, right? Some sniffles. So basically, I didn't feel sick till freaking Thursday of all days. I was completely fine. Stopped taking anything because I was like, I'm over this cold now. Like, I sound normal. I feel normal. I feel energetic. Everything's fine. And then lo and behold, I wake up Thursday with a pretty sore throat. And I was like, oh no. The wedding's like 3 days away. What am I going to do? So I just decided to go to the wedding anyway. And I would do my best not to infect people by, keeping my distance as much as I could. And also just trying to take care of myself as much as I could leading up to that. So the following 3 days of Thursday, Friday, I was just having as much tea as I could, getting my vitamins in, popping those zinc lozenges, lots of vitamin C, vitamin D. I was drinking a lot of broth. I had some lamb bone broth from earlier that I made, and so I warmed that. I'd had it in the freezer. I warmed it up, warmed it up, and just drank that. It's pretty tasty, actually. If you just add the right amount of salt, the rest of the flavor profile was pretty good. So I'm going to keep doing that. Just make more bone broth, have it ready for on the go in the freezer if I need one. So it was the tea, the bone broth, and my favorite, the bread, butter, and honey. My triple stack for how to defeat a cold. And honestly, by Friday, I was feeling a little better. Not that much better, but a little better. And then on Saturday, I woke up with no sore throat, no nothing. I was like, oh, this is amazing. I just had a little bit of congestion, but it's one of those things where you get congestion like early in the morning, and then you're okay throughout the day, and then you might get some more like in the evening. That's kind of what I was having. So I basically didn't really have any symptoms by Saturday. And so I was like, all right, I'm definitely going to this wedding. I think I was pretty sure I was already going anyway, unless there was like something really, really drastic that took a turn that I got way worse, which it wasn't happening at all. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to surprise the bride and groom all of a sudden and be like, I'm not coming to your wedding, even though I'm in the wedding party. So the wedding continued and had a lot of fun. I'll give some details of that. But first, maybe some of the stuff that happened leading up to the wedding at the end. Some of the stuff that was related to the wedding was because it's an Indian wedding. It's both, it's mixed, right? It's a Canadian/Indian marriage. So they had to have I can't speak. So they had both an Indian and a Western ceremony. And some of the traditions of the Indian part, I guess, are that there's some activities that happen in the days leading up to the actual day of the wedding. So one of the things was this henna ceremony, I guess you could call it, where the women got henna tattoos on their hands and feet. So we went to the bride's parents' house for that. They had set up a sweet tent in their backyard, and we had some good Indian food, and the women got the tattoos done. My new sister-in-law was covered basically in tattoos in both her hands and feet, and on her hands both on the palm side and the top of the hand side. And once that ink goes on, you have to actually like stay still and not move around, because you can kind of spread it on things. You can undo a lot of the work. So it's kind of like you have to commit to a way bigger thing than you actually can tell from the beginning, because you think, oh, they're just going to put it on and it's over. But no, then afterwards you got to sit still for at least an hour, or else like if you move around, and this was happening to some people, you'll just start spreading it on your face, on your other hands, on your, like, just because you're always moving your hands and touching something. So it's just bound to happen. So that was funny. And then the other thing related to Indian ceremonies that happens is the next day they had like this turmeric paste ceremony, where you're basically covering the bride and the groom with this yellow paste. I think they make it with like some yogurt and some like beans and turmeric to make it the yellow color. And then many of the family members basically take turns to cover first the bride, then the groom with this paste on their face. And then eventually you run out of space on the face and it moves on to like other body parts. So then my sister-in-law first, and her face got covered in pretty much yellow paste pretty quickly. And then people started to do hands and then feet, and it just kept going and going. It got more ridiculous with time. It was pretty funny to watch. We were supposed to do my brother-in-law as well. But by the time it was his turn, like it had gotten pretty late, and our kid had to go home and get some sleep. So we kind of skipped on that part and didn't get to actually have fun in putting any paste on him. But still, it was just fun to watch and participate. Oh, and the other fun thing we had, there was some drumming that happened on the same day as the henna day. There was in the tent a place set up with like nice soft mats for a bunch of people to sit down, and basically all the women in really beautiful like Indian clothes sat down, and they had a drum there, which I think they call dhol in Indian or whatever, and so which I think it's Punjabi. Okay, pretty sure it's Punjabi because they're Sikh. Anyways, they had a dhol or drum, and then the women started drumming it and started singing at the same time, and lots of clapping to go along with the drumming, and beautiful singing, like a lot of call and response. And it kind of like pretty soon everyone was surrounding them and kind of sitting around and following along with claps and singing as well, whoever knew what to sing. That was a lot of fun. My kid really loved that. I have a video of him like clapping and jumping at the same time, really enjoying like hearing the song as they're at that particular moment. So pretty glad I caught that on video. Yeah, he was pretty good all week, actually. He was really good on those 2 days leading up to the wedding, going to those events and just having fun, not causing too much trouble, not crying or anything like that. And then the day of the wedding, he was a pretty stellar boy as well. Because there were two ceremonies. Like I said, there was an Indian ceremony and a Western ceremony, and he was just well behaved throughout both of the events. So it was just like easy parenting. Thank God, because there's plenty of other stuff to do, especially for my wife. She was like all over the place. You know, it's her brother's wedding, so of course she's got a lot of responsibilities, and she like really wants to make it an awesome day for him, so that he has great memories for the rest of his life, and it's really important to her. So Benny was not a factor in kind of making that a more difficult day. He was the exact opposite. So she was able to keep it together and do a good job with all her other responsibilities and help set things up, take things down, make sure the right order of things are happening. She had an early start to the day because she had to be up at 5:30 to go for makeup at 6:30 in the morning. And then I got away with having to wake up early because of parenting duties. The one time that parenting lets you have more sleep compared to less was this situation, because for groomsmen, there was supposed to be a photo shoot happening at 6 o'clock. So we had to arrive at whatever the location was by 5:30. So it's like, oh God, we don't have anyone to watch our kid that early in the morning if we both have to be out the door that early. So one of us has to stay. And I got to be the lucky one who got to sleep in with my kid. Still had a somewhat early start to the day. 7 a.m. I had to be up and get everything ready, basically, to be picked up at 8 to go to the Indian temple for the ceremony, for the first morning Indian ceremony. Like I said, I woke up feeling pretty good that morning. No sore throat, no nothing. I was like, oh, this is great. So I was pretty energetic, got up right away, got everything ready. Benny, like I said, was very easy to handle that day. Just had his nice big breakfast, put on his awesome clothes. Actually, we got this little Indian outfit that my sister-in-law got for Benny. And he just looks awesome in it. I think I'll put a picture of that in the thumbnail for this episode. But he looked good all day. He had that for the Indian ceremony, and he had like a suit and tie for the Western one too. So he was looking like a first-class gentleman the whole way through the day. And then we got picked up at 8 like we were supposed to, got to the ceremony, and then got to the temple first, and then the ceremony wasn't going to start till an hour later. So we had about an hour to kill. So we met up with the groom and the other groomsmen, and we took a bunch of photos in our like Indian outfits. My brother-in-law had a sweet like outfit that was like bright white, kind of beigey color with a bunch of gold all over it, and then he had a turban on as well. Kind of hilarious to see him in a turban, but it kind of suited him too at the same time. Before the ceremony started, we like got into the temple, and they actually serve food there too. That was pretty cool. They have like this big hall where there's a bunch of rows of these like carpets where people sit, and you can just go in a corner where there's like someone serving kind of like a buffet style. You could pick up a tray and they'll serve your tray. Then we sat on those carpets, had a little snack, and then in no time we were already, it was time to start the ceremony. So when we went to like the hallway where the ceremony was going to happen, they kind of just brought us in 2 by 2 to kind of come up to the front where there was like this stage, you could say, I guess, with some like artifacts. There was actually like a row of swords, like curved swords set up in the front there. So you're actually coming up to the stage where they're set up, and you kneel down and kind of touch your hands to the ground. And some people were actually kissing the floor. Some people were just like putting their forehead down. And then so you do that, and then you move out to the side to fill out the kind of like the room and just sit down on the ground and wait for the ceremony to start. So me and my little kid went up to the front together, and then I was like, all right, little guy, let's get on our knees now. And he like listened to me and got on his knees, and he'd seen everybody else do it, I guess. So he just like kind of instinctually realized he's just copying. And so we both kind of got on our knees, put our hands down on the ground and bowed. And then I was like, well done, buddy. And he was just like so happy to just do what I was asking him to do. It was actually awesome. And then we went and sat and waited for everyone else to come in. So as people were starting to filter in, all of a sudden I noticed like somebody who like had sat down a little bit off to my right, again near the wall, and she was kind of like looking at me. And then it took me like a good 5-10 seconds, but eventually I was like, oh crap, that's my friend. Like I know that person. That's like one of my closest friends. Yeah. And then as soon as I did realize it was her, I would just like slowly kind of shuffled over to her and to say hello. And my little guy came with me, and I said hello, and the little boy wanted to stay with her. And so she's like, go back to where you're sitting. I'll watch him and play with him. And then literally he just like sat and played with her quietly for the rest of the ceremony, the whole time as everyone was shuffling in, and then throughout the entire like actual ceremony part as well. He just was like a really good little boy, just sitting there minding his own business, like sitting in the lap of my friend, like, and just like listening to whatever kind of direction she gave him. It was awesome. The actual ceremony, there was like these 3 guys sitting to the right who were playing instruments. And there was one main person kind of on the stage in the middle who was doing kind of like what I think was probably like scripture reading / singing. And I think that's all I could really see. I don't think there was anybody else. And then the 3 people playing instruments, they also had microphones where they would sing as well, but they were like more support. And so it was the instruments where there was like one dude playing the drums. He was awesome. He was probably the best one. And then 2 the other guys were playing this instrument that is probably like specifically Sikh that I don't know the name of, but it kind of reminded me of an accordion. It had that same fun kind of feel where you like open and close and air goes through and makes notes. So yeah, throughout the whole ceremony, there was a lot of music and drumming and singing. And at various parts, the bride and the groom had to stand up from a kneeling position and go up and walk around the stage. And it would specifically be with the husband, the groom, going first, and with the bride going behind and holding some piece of clothing. It looked like a scarf maybe that the groom was carrying, holding it in her hands, like walking behind. I just thought that was kind of like a bit of a funny metaphoric image of just like their future lives. Just kidding. No, if anything, it's going to be the bride pulling the groom behind her. So anyway, just a silly joke. That was pretty much it for the ceremony. And after that, it was noon by then, and it was pretty much time for my kid's nap. And there was a big break between the end of that ceremony and the start of the Western ceremony at the banquet hall. So we had luckily gotten a hotel room that would let us check in early. So we went to the room and had a family nap. That was super key and necessary because, when you're sick, sleeping is always the best thing anyway. And for a little toddler to behave themselves in the afternoon, they always need a midday nap, at least for my little guy. So it worked out in everyone's favor. And of course, my wife's pregnant, so extra naps is always good for her as well. So it just worked out on all fronts, on all levels. Everybody took a nice, good, couple hour nap. And then we got up and got ready and went to the banquet hall a little early so that we could help with some of the setup and everything. My wife was more so involved with that, and I was kind of more on babysitting duty, just making sure the kid didn't, disappear or cause too much trouble. And then she was helping out with all the, centerpiece setup, flower setup. She had done a lot of work with the flowers, actually. Yeah, she created all the bouquets for the centerpieces and for the bride. And also she made the boutonnieres made from flowers for all the groomsmen. Yeah, so she put in a lot of work with that stuff. And then for the ceremony, I got a couple of my friends who were also at the wedding to watch my kid while I participated in the Western ceremony. So it's just like a regular, wedding where the groom waits kind of on the stage and then a bunch of the groomsmen stand there with him, and then the bridesmaids come in and then eventually the bride. So that was kind of like the setup, right, as most weddings have. So I had to kind of be there standing beside the groom and for the beginning and also throughout the whole ceremony. And so luckily my friends stepped up and watched my boy during that part. And that was very helpful, of course, because the grandparents were having a little bit too much fun with their friends at their, son's wedding to be taking on that responsibility as much as they normally would. So I totally understand that. So luckily, we had that at our disposal. And then the ceremony was actually quite short, only lasted I think 25, 30 minutes, which is nice. That's perfect. That's how I like my ceremonies, short and sweet. The best part of the ceremonies was them doing their vows to one another. They were just their own vows rather than kind of repeating what the officiant says. And they were the cheesiest things ever. Oh my God, they were just dripping with so much cheese. It was amazing. Just the most classic lines of I can't even put it into words what you mean to me, blah, blah, blah. It's just I love it, man. Give me more of that. It was hilarious. My wife and I were just making fun of them. We were just both just going off on them, being at some point we were just too uncomfortable to get to hear more of those cheesy I love you statements. But it was all heartfelt, so you can't blame them too much. Then after the ceremony, we did a second entrance into the banquet hall, after the wedding was officially over, as a way of kind of introducing them as a husband and wife. So the groomsmen and the bridesmaids came out to some music and danced, and then afterwards the bride and the groom came. But for them, they had actually hired a couple of dhol players, which are those Indian drums, right? So they just these two guys playing on the dhol, that classic like Indian song that I'm sure you've heard like a million times. It goes ding 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 ding. I'm doing a terrible job of like saying it, but I'm sure just based off of even that bad of a representation you get what I'm talking about. So it was actually pretty sweet. It was an awesome entrance, and I really enjoyed that part of the night compared to other moments. That was one of my favorites. Anyway, the rest of the night was awesome. Those two dudes playing the drums did a really good job of getting the crowd involved and getting the different family members to do some dancing. They had a little bit of a dance-off where they had different family members from the groom side and the bride side have a little bit of a dance-off in the middle. At some point, they asked for like the grooms and the bride's brothers to come on the dance floor. And my brother-in-law doesn't have any brothers. He does have some male cousins, and on the bride's side, she doesn't have any brothers either, but all her male cousins stepped up. But then since none of the male cousins from the groom side stepped up, I was like, well, I'm a brother-in-law. I'm pretty sure that counts. Like, you know, in Armenian culture, like kind of similar to Indian culture, they don't have that distinction of like, well, he's a cousin, he's a brother. If he's a male and he's in the family, they're a brother. And so I was like, all right, I'm stepping up. And I went and did a little dance off with the bride's brothers, and it was really good. We had a lot of fun. Afterwards, at the end of the night, I had a lot of people coming up to me and just saying like how I was like the best dancer from the groom side, like well done representing, like doing a good job. Basically, everyone was pretty happy with the dancing that J-Mart was providing. So there you go. If you guys ever need someone to dance their face off at your wedding, you know who to call. Yeah, the rest of the night was awesome. We had a lot of awesome music that my brother-in-law made a playlist and got the DJ to kind of stick to the playlist pretty good. And it was a mix of songs that I like, but also some like cool Indian songs with like great drum beats in them as well. So it was just like excellent all around from start to finish. I think by the end of the night, we left at 12:30, my wife and I, and the party kept going for another half hour, and they stopped the music promptly at 1 from what I heard. So that's pretty good. That's a pretty great night. And my brother-in-law had like 200 plus people at this wedding. So it's just amazing that something like that can happen these days, you know. So got to be thankful for our lucky stars for a night like that. And this was the 4th wedding I'd been to this year, 4 COVID weddings. And by far, this was the most fun. And yeah, so glad to save the best for last. Absolutely. Next day, we did a little bit of cleanup, but it wasn't very much since there was a lot of people helping. We got it done pretty quickly. Had a nice brunch at like a Sunset Grill nearby, and it was actually funny. I can't believe that at the Sunset Grill they're checking for your vaccine passport. Oh my god, I just like showed it to her and kind of pulled it away pretty quickly, and she kind of laughed, but she's like, whatever, go. She didn't want to fight me. I'm sorry, like my wife hated it, and she's like, why do you have to always do this? But I'm like, I civic disobedience. That's what I want. That's what I want to do. If there's these stupid rules that I have to follow, then I will follow them only as much as I have to. I don't know. Maybe I was being a dick by not showing her my vaccine passport nicely, and maybe she's not the reason behind this whole thing. So it's not right of me to treat her poorly. But at the same time, if there's something that I disagree with, and I don't have to follow it if it's not enforceable, then that's what I'm going to do. You're not going to get change happening if you keep following the rules that you don't want to follow. So anyway, over with that. After the brunch, went to see my dad to pick up my kid. Oh yeah, I didn't mention that. Partway through the night, I had my dad come pick up my kid, I think at around like 8 o'clock. And that allowed us to have a little bit more fun the rest of the night without having to worry about our kid. So I went to pick up my kid from my dad. We had dinner and went home in the evening after that. By then, I was just too tired to record another podcast, so I decided to do it Monday. Plus, I don't know if I don't think I mentioned this, but after having drinks at the wedding, I definitely didn't do my body as any service by doing that. So on the next day, I woke up not feeling as good as I did the previous day. My infection definitely took a slight turn for the worse. Not a big one, but I, screwed myself a little bit by, having drinks. But of course, how could I not? And then today I'm pretty much okay again, just some congestion, I guess. But that's enough about that. Let's plow on ahead. Let's go on to the Bitcoin update of the week. All right. As part of my Bitcoin update, now I'm going to start using block height. I guess I should probably explain that first, right? So Bitcoin's on a blockchain. Each new block added to the blockchain has a number. So we're on block height 706,668. The price of Bitcoin is sitting at $62,912. And if you want to think of it another way, we can also think of it how many sats you can buy with $1. What are sats? Sats are short for satoshis, and satoshis is what the smallest unit that a Bitcoin can be broken down into. So one Bitcoin can be broken down into 100 million satoshis. And so $1 will buy you 1,589 satoshis currently. Yeah, so the price is basically hovering slightly above of what it was about a week ago. It did shoot up to a new all-time high above 66,000, but didn't sustain for very long. It came back down and tested $60,000 as support. Seems to be holding so far, and now just slightly above nearly 63K. Yeah, let's see. What else is there about Bitcoin? Oh, related to nodes, right? You need nodes that participate, that are part of the network that makes up Bitcoin. And so what I recently did was I got this thing called an Uninterruptible Power Supply, a UPS. And it's basically so that you plug that into the wall, and then you plug your whatever you want into the UPS, the Uninterruptible Power Supply. And then if the power goes out, that thing has enough of a charge to provide power for the whatever you got plugged in for a few hours, or I think it can go up to a few hours until you can either have a backup generator go on, or the power comes back on its own. So I'm pretty happy to have gotten that, because now that I'm doing this Lightning Network thing, you don't really need it for the Bitcoin node, but you do need it for the Lightning node to be online at all times. So that'll be really helpful for that. And then the other thing I actually got, the other techie thing I got a security camera. We live in not the nicest neighborhood. There's just recently, even just last weekend, I think I saw in the news somebody who was shot to death right near the most major intersection where we live. So yeah, so having some security is good. So I got a security camera, and then I was just trying to figure out how to install it, and it was not working. And then through some troubleshooting, I figured out that the power adapter is dysfunctional. So I was luckily able to get in touch with the support team for the company that sells these, and they sent me a new power adapter for free. And I actually already got it and turned it on, and it actually works. So pretty stoked about that. I think that's all I got for you this week. Like I said, similar to last week, I'm mostly recovered, but still a little bit to go. So I'm just going to, stop doing this and try to get some rest in. So everyone listening, get in touch with me through social media at jmartfit on Instagram and Twitter. Email me at newsletter@jmartfit.com. If you guys can find some time, maybe give me a review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and also check out my State of Health podcast. Thanks for listening, guys and gals. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And have a good week. Stay active and be grateful. I'm grateful for you. Peace. J-Mart out.